The rain was coming down hard. Streetlights outside had turned into blurry halos, and the buildings across the street looked more like shadows than structures. I was sitting in my old apartment's living room in the Capitol Hill area of Seattle. My name is Jason, and I work as a freelance video editor. That night, I was home alone. My roommate Tyler was out at a friend's birthday party and wasn't going to be back until late. At first, I was actually enjoying it, some quiet time. A cool breeze through the window and a documentary playing on Netflix. But slowly, as the storm outside got heavier and louder, a weird feeling started to settle in. The room was dimly lit. Raindrops were tapping on the windows in a strange rhythm, and the power kept flickering. But what really started to bother me was how silent the apartment was. Too silent. I grabbed the remote and turned up the volume a bit, but the rain was so loud it even drowned out the sound from the TV. Then I heard this faint whispering. At first, I thought it was part of the show, but when I paused the video, the whispering didn't stop. I sat there listening. It felt like someone was standing on my balcony, walking slowly. The wooden floor outside creaked, and I could hear the water dripping, then another soft creak, like someone stepping carefully. My balcony is on the 3rd floor. There's no way anyone could climb up there, not without a ladder or rope or something. I tried to calm myself, thinking maybe it was a cat or a raccoon. That wouldn't be too unusual for Seattle. But then I noticed something strange. The curtain near the window was slightly swaying. The weird thing was, the window was closed. I was sure I had shut it earlier in the evening. My heart started to race. I walked over, checked the lock. It was shut. I peeked through the curtain, and all I could see was rain. But the feeling that someone was out there, watching me, it was still very much alive. Suddenly, with a loud crack of lightning, the power went out again. In that 1 second of bright light, I swear I saw someone standing on my balcony. A figure, motionless. I couldn't see the face, just a dark shape like someone standing there, looking straight at me. I jumped back, and just like that, the light was gone. When I looked again, the balcony was empty, totally empty. I was shivering, not from the cold, but from fear. I tried to pull myself together and walk to the kitchen for a glass of water, but my mind was stuck on that one lightning flash. Did I actually see someone? Or was my brain playing tricks on me because of the storm and being alone? But then something else came back to me, something Tyler had mentioned just a week ago, half joking. He said this building once made the local news because of a weird disappearance. A guy on the 3rd floor had vanished overnight. No signs of forced entry, no break-in, nothing. The only thing they found? An open balcony door and a single wet footprint on the floor. I'd laughed it off back then. But now I felt like I was living that exact story. Then I heard a sharp metallic cling, like something small had fallen to the floor near the balcony door. I slowly walked over. The door was still locked, but when I looked down, I froze. There was a wet footprint, human, clear as day. It was inside, right next to the door, like someone had stepped in from the rain. Except there was no one there. My hand started shaking. I switched the lights on, which had just come back. I checked the whole balcony again, nothing. But the floor around the footprint was completely dry, which meant it had appeared just moments ago. Someone or something had stepped inside, and I'd missed it. Or worse, it was still inside. I was just about to slam the balcony door shut when the power went out again. The glass now showed nothing but dark reflections. I could barely hear my own breathing over the sound of the rain, but in that silence, I heard something else. A soft, slow breathing sound coming from just outside that balcony door. I gathered what little courage I had, shut the door, and turned on all the lights in the living room. But even then, that uneasy feeling didn't go away. I just sat there for a while, eyes scanning every shadow. Netflix was paused, the remote was in my lap, but I'd completely forgotten about it. The storm kept roaring outside, but inside me, Something had already snapped. I decided right then I wasn't going anywhere till morning. But deep down, I knew I wasn't alone anymore. At least, it didn't feel like it. There was something on that balcony. And maybe now inside this room. Or maybe like Tyler once said, some things don't come back to visit. They come back to stay. My hands were still shaking, and my mind felt numb. That wet footprint on the balcony left a question inside me I didn't even want to ask myself. The rain was still pounding outside, drops hitting the window so hard it cut through the silence in the room like glass. I grabbed my phone in panic and tried calling Tyler right away, but the call wouldn't go through. The screen just showed call failed, and the network bar disappeared. I checked the Wi-Fi disconnected. The power was still on, but everything else felt dead. There was a strange heaviness in the air, like something invisible was pressing down on the room, something I couldn't see, but I could feel. I tried sitting back on the couch, but then I noticed something on my laptop screen. Netflix had paused by itself. I hadn't touched the remote or hit any buttons, and then, without any reason, my phone's flashlight suddenly turned on. A bright, cold light hit my eyes, and I dropped the phone in shock. My chest tightened like something invisible was standing way too close, and I could feel it even though I couldn't see it. I tried to calm myself down. Maybe it's just a glitch. Maybe the network's down, nothing serious. But my voice was trembling as I told myself that lie. I walked over to the balcony again. The door was still locked, but now I could clearly hear someone breathing on the other side. Slow, deep, and totally unnatural. Like someone who hadn't moved in hours, just watching me. I built up the courage and opened the door. Nothing. Just rain dripping, the air damp and cold. But no one was there. I shut the door again and locked it tight. My fear had now grown so intense that every sound made me jump. Then I looked down the hallway leading to the guest room. That room's window was open. It's a window we never open. Tyler and I use that room like a storage area. And the weirdest thing? I knew I had checked it earlier. It was shut. I slowly walked toward the hallway. Every step felt like the ground was slipping under me. The guest room door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open. Cold air was coming in through the open window. Rain was blowing inside, just a little. I closed the window, but the room was dark. And in one corner, it looked like someone had been sitting there for a long time, just waiting. None of the furniture was moved, but there was a wet patch on the floor shaped almost like a human. Like someone had been sitting there and had just stood up. I hurried back to the living room and sat on the couch. At that point I knew I wasn't alone anymore. Something was watching me, observing me, tracking my every move. I purposely kept my eyes fixed in one direction, and then suddenly turned around hoping to catch someone. But behind me, just a wall, then lightning struck. The room lit up white for 1 second, and in that 1 second, I saw a face behind the balcony railing. Completely expressionless, no blinking. Just staring at me. The moment the light disappeared, so did the face. I panicked and ran to double-check the balcony door. It was still locked. Now my fear hit its peak. I moved to the center of the room, thinking maybe being in the middle would keep me farthest from anything. Then I noticed something on the dining table, a folded piece of paper. It hadn't been there before. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Only one line was written on it. "Why did you close the window, Jason?" That moment felt like someone dropped a weight on my chest. My name, Jason. How did they know it? And that line, what did it even mean? Did someone see me closing the guest room window? How was it open in the first place? Did someone actually get into the apartment? I tried to slow down my breathing, but my mind was spinning with 1,000 questions. Was someone messing with me? A stalker? Or was something really here? Now I was looking at the apartment's walls differently. The windows, the wooden floors, the balcony, they all felt less like home and more like a trap. I couldn't shake the feeling. Was I next? Just like that guy who vanished from this same building without a trace? After reading that note, it felt like all the strength had drained out of me. The room was completely silent, but there was something in that silence. Something unseen that wasn't just observing me anymore, it was manipulating me. I slowly went around checking every door, locking them one by one. I shut all the windows. Again, pulled the curtains, and brought a large kitchen knife to keep by my side. I sat down in the corner of the living room, eyes scanning every corner, every shadow suddenly suspicious. Something was playing a game with me now, and I had no choice but to play along. Every time it seemed like things had calmed down, a random sound, a soft breath, or some odd noise would shake the air with fear again. Then suddenly, I remembered something. Tyler had once told me that someone used to live in the apartment above us, someone who mysteriously vanished one night. And that man's name was Jason. My body froze. That was my name too. Was it just a coincidence? Or had that name become some kind of identity for whatever was haunting this place? I pulled out my phone and started searching online about past tenants in the building. I came across an old archived news report. Local man Jason Howell disappears mysteriously from Capitol Hill apartment, last seen on a stormy night. Dad, it was exactly 4 years ago. A stormy night just like this. It started feeling like I wasn't just scared. I was part of something repeating. A pattern. Right then, I heard heavy footsteps above me. Thud, thud. Like someone in heavy boots was pacing fast, angrily. But no one lives in the unit above mine. It's been vacant for over 2 years. I stood up, staring at the ceiling. Was someone actually up there? Or was something right above my head, unseen? The more I thought, the deeper the fear pulled me. About an hour later, around midnight, there was a knock on the door. I jumped. I looked through the peephole. It was Tyler, soaked from the rain, exhausted on his face. "Jason, open up. What's going on?" he kept asking. But I couldn't open the door. I couldn't trust it was really him. What if the thing pretending to be Tyler was trying to trick me? My fear and paranoia had built a wall in my mind. I just stood there, silently watching him through the peephole, until he eventually walked away, confused and disappointed. I relocked the doors, and when I walked back into my room, I saw another folded piece of paper sitting on my desk. Exactly like the first note. It shouldn't have been there. I had been inside the whole time. The doors were locked. How did it get in? My hands were shaking as I opened it. The note read, "Now it's your turn downstairs." Downstairs? What did that mean? First the guy upstairs disappeared. Now us? I was so panicked I just sat waiting for the sun to rise. Daylight felt like the only thing that could make me feel normal again. The next morning, I went straight to the building manager and asked for the security footage. I told him I thought someone had tried to get in through my balcony. He gave me access to the recordings, and what I saw shook me to my core. During a lightning flash, a shadow appears standing on my balcony. But when the light hits it, just right, I see the face. It's me. Not just similar, exactly me. Same hoodie, same haircut, same face. It was like I was watching myself standing outside. Watching me. I came back to my apartment, completely mentally broken. Was I really seeing something? Or was my mind turning against me? Was something mimicking me? Or had I become part of whatever it was? I couldn't even remember Tyler's face anymore. My own reflection felt unfamiliar, alien. Every corner, every sound, every surface, I saw myself everywhere. But a version of me that wasn't real. Later that night, I sat in my room again. The windows were still closed, but they didn't seem to matter anymore. Whatever wants to come in, will come in. Maybe I'm the way in. Maybe. I am at. And in my final narration, I wrote just one line. I don't bother closing the windows anymore. Whatever's coming will come. The rain was coming down so hard that even the wipers couldn't keep the windshield clear. It was around 11:30 at night on New Jersey's I-195 highway, and the road was completely empty. Chris, a graphic designer, was driving back from a friend's wedding with his fiancée Emily. The car's heater was on, but there was still a strange chill in the air, a dampness that felt like it came from more than just the rain. Outside, things looked eerie. They were driving through the Pine Barrens, a thick forested area where even locals avoid driving during the day. The few streetlights along the highway flickered weakly, their pale yellow glow barely cutting through the downpour. Everything looked blurred through the rain, and they hadn't seen another car for miles. The only sounds were the rain hammering the roof, and the soft hiss of the tires on wet asphalt. At first, Emily had been talking non-stop about the wedding, the guests, the food, but all of a sudden, she went completely silent. Chris figured she was just tired, but then he noticed her staring out the window, completely still. He asked, "Everything okay?" Emily replied softly, almost in a whisper. "Did you see her?" Chris glanced over, confused. "See who?" But Emily didn't answer. She just kept staring out into the dark. That's when Chris looked through the windshield again and saw her. A woman, standing by the side of the road near the trees. She was wearing a white dress, soaked through from the rain, her hair stuck to her face. And her eyes. They were glowing, like how animals' eyes reflect in headlights. But she wasn't moving at all. She stood completely still, facing the car directly. Chris's breath caught for a moment. He looked again, but now she was gone. He tried to shake it off, telling himself it was just the rain and headlights playing tricks. But then Emily whispered, "She was watching us for a long time." Her voice was shaky, and her hand was trembling. Chris laughed nervously, saying, "You've been watching too many horror movies." But deep down, he felt the same heavy unease. The air inside the car felt thick. Something about this stretch of road felt wrong, not just creepy, but truly off. Even the GPS started acting strange. It suddenly said rerouting, and then turn left in 100 feet. But there was no left turn, just dense forest. The road ahead was straight. Chris frowned and looked again. The GPS still showed a turn where none existed. Annoyed, he shut it off, but the uneasy feeling wouldn't go away. Then, a lightning flash lit up everything for a split second, and Chris saw the woman again. This time, she was on the opposite side of the road, much farther ahead, maybe 300 feet away, standing near the trees. But now, she was slightly bent forward, like she was about to move, or like someone was holding her back. The scariest part? There's no way she could have walked there that fast, and Chris hadn't seen her move at all. Emily was clearly scared now. She tightened her seatbelt and started shaking slightly. Her eyes were wide as she whispered, "She said something." In my head. Her hand grabbed Chris's, and her fingers felt ice cold and damp, like she had just pulled them out of water. Chris panicked. He pressed harder on the gas, speeding up without looking back. The rain was still pouring, but now the fear inside the car was thicker than the storm outside. One thought kept echoing in Chris's mind. If she was watching us and spoken to Emily's mind, then who was she? But the answer wasn't coming yet. It was still ahead of them, and that answer might not just be terrifying. It could be deadly. The rain had gotten so heavy now that it was almost impossible to see anything outside the car. The wipers were going nonstop, but thick layers of water and fog had basically erased the outside world. Chris's grip on the steering wheel was no longer steady. His full attention was now on Emily, who was slipping into some kind of state he couldn't understand. She had started mumbling, like she was talking to someone, but her voice was so low and strange that for a second, Chris thought she wasn't talking to herself, but to someone else. He glanced at her and saw Emily staring blankly out the window, her lips still moving. He asked gently, "Emily, are you okay?" But the answer he got made his heart drop. Emily looked him straight in the eyes and said, "She's in the car with us." Chris felt his throat go dry. Without saying a word, he looked into the rearview mirror and his stomach dropped. In the far corner of the back seat, there was a figure with wet hair hanging over her face. The hair was so long and soaked that you couldn't see any features. But she was there, and she was staring at Chris. For one terrifying second, their eyes met in the mirror. But when Chris turned around in a panic, there was nothing there. The seat was empty. No one was there. But the air was still cold, and the smell of wet earth still lingered. Chris's breathing had grown heavy. His hands were shaking. He couldn't tell if his mind was playing tricks on him or if what he saw was real. Every time lightning flashed outside, he saw shapes in the distance, figures standing perfectly still among the trees, watching. And every time the light faded, the figures vanished. Emily was still muttering, but now her voice sounded ... different. Not human. She suddenly turned to Chris and said, "Don't stop, Jonathan. She won't let you go." Chris froze. "What? Jonathan?" He stammered. "Emily, I'm Chris. Who's Jonathan?" But her eyes didn't seem like hers anymore, unfocused. "Hollow." And she just kept repeating, "You'll make the same mistake." She'd burn it all again. Chris was sure now something was seriously wrong. Emily, who was always rational and grounded, was now acting like someone else. And the things she was saying, they felt deep, like part of some unfinished story. Like she had known this woman before. Like this wasn't random, it was meant to happen. Then Emily said something else. "I saw her when I was 8. She saw me too, but I never told anyone." Chris felt completely helpless. The car was still moving along I-195, but the GPS was dead. His phone had no signal, and there wasn't another car in sight. The sound of the rain now echoed in his ears until, suddenly, without any warning, the car just shut off. No jerking, no lights flashing, just silence. The headlights dimmed. Around them was only thick forest and pounding rain. Chris tried restarting the engine several times, but nothing happened. It was like something wanted them to stop right there. Then, there were 3 soft knocks on the driver's side window. Tap, tap, tap. Chris froze. He turned on the flashlight and looked out the window, but saw nothing. Just sheets of rain and darkness. Then he turned toward Emily, and what he saw almost made him scream. Her eyes were wide open, but her pupils were fully dilated, completely black, terrifying, and empty. She was staring at him. But it didn't feel like Emily. It felt like someone else was looking through her. And she just kept repeating one thing over and over. "She's in you now. She's in you now. She's in you now." Chris sat there, shaking, trying to understand what was happening. Was he hallucinating? Was Emily having some kind of episode? Or was this woman, whatever she was, real? Could she enter people's minds and change them from the inside out? The rain still poured down, but it no longer sounded like rain. It sounded like screaming, like some lost soul crying out. The rain finally started to ease, but Chris's panic hadn't. Emily had passed out. Her breathing was slow, but steady. Chris shook her gently, splashed water on her face, called her name. "Emily, Emily, wake up." A few moments later, she opened her eyes. She didn't say anything, just stared into his, silently. Chris's head felt like it was about to explode, but he pulled himself together and tried starting the car again. This time, the engine coughed and started. It was as if some invisible force had finally let them go. Without wasting a second, Chris ignored the GPS and turned toward the next highway exit. The trees started to thin out, and a few miles ahead, he saw a small rundown roadside motel. Its old neon sign flickered in blue. More than half of the letters burned out. Chris parked the car and helped Emily inside. The motel lobby was dimly lit but warm, with old paintings on the walls and an elderly receptionist sitting behind the desk, staring directly at Chris. Chris quietly said, "One room, please," and motioned toward Emily, but the old man kept. His eyes locked on Chris. After a pause, he asked, "Who's with you?" Chris looked confused. "My fiancée," he replied. The man hesitated, then slowly shook his head and said, "I'm sorry, sir. But when you walked in, you were alone. There was no one with you." Chris's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" he said, agitated. "She came in with me just now from the car. Check the CCTV, look." The receptionist silently pointed to a monitor showing the live feed from the lobby. Chris stared at the screen and saw himself walking in, soaked, exhausted, but completely alone. No one was next to him. No Emily. He quickly turned around. Emily was still sitting on the lobby couch. Or was she? Without saying another word, Chris ran to the room they were given. As he opened the door, he froze. The room was completely empty. On the bed was just one thing, Emily's phone. On the floor were wet footprints leading to the far corner. And there, lying in a small puddle, was a piece of damp white fabric, exactly like the dress that woman was wearing. But Emily herself? She was gone. As if she had never been there at all. Chris was in total shock. He couldn't understand what was happening. Was he hallucinating? Was Emily ever even real? But the memories, the voice, the time they spent together, was it all just in his head? Or had he been with something that wasn't human? That night, sitting alone in that cold motel room, Chris started searching his phone for anything about that stretch of road in the Pine Barrens. What he found sent a chill through his spine. Ghost sightings near I-195. White woman in rain. Disappeared travelers. Legend of the bride in the Pine Barrens. For years, people had reported seeing the same woman along that highway. One story stood out, a bride who had died in a car accident near that exact spot, and now appears on rainy nights, targeting lone drivers. Some who saw her vanished without a trace. Others survived, but no one believed them. When Chris contacted Emily's family, they all said the same thing. Emily's at home. And you went to the wedding alone. Now no one had answers for him. He wasn't crazy, but everyone treated him like he was. Weeks later, one rainy night, Chris was driving alone again. Same road, same Pine Barrens stretch. The rain was back. Everything was just like before. The heater was on, the wipers moving, nothing was visible outside. He glanced at the rearview mirror, and his breath caught in his throat. She was there again. In the back seat, in the same spot white dress. Soaked hair, face hidden, but this time she didn't vanish. This time she stayed. The rain in Chicago felt like an old worn-out record. Same sound, same rhythm, same darkness, just playing on repeat. Leah was sitting alone in her small Logan Square apartment. A cup of coffee sat in front of her, Adobe Illustrator open on her laptop, but her mind kept drifting elsewhere. Outside, the rain slammed against the windows, with flashes of lightning and soft thunder, making the whole atmosphere feel even heavier. Inside, the silence was so deep that even the sound of her own typing felt strange. She lived on the 3rd floor, and the apartment below hers, which used to be home to a young couple, had been empty for the past 2 weeks. But it wasn't just the emptiness that bothered her. The couple had vanished without a word, without taking any of their things. The landlord simply said, they moved out, but no one really knew where they went. That night, Leah felt emotionally drained, like something inside her had gone numb. During the storm, when the power flickered and went out again, she suddenly heard a soft, strange sound. She sat up straight. The apartment was completely silent. But then she heard it again. From downstairs. Very faint, but clear, a woman crying. It wasn't loud. It sounded like someone crying quietly, tucked away in a corner, slowly breaking down. Leah got up, stepped out of her room, and looked down toward the hallway. She didn't see anything, but the sound didn't stop. She told herself it was probably a radio outside, or just her tired brain playing tricks. The next afternoon, as the rain started picking up again, the same sounds returned. But this time, there was something else, like furniture being dragged very slowly. That soft, dragging sh-she sound didn't feel like a chair or a table. It sounded more like something light scraping along the floor. Leah's breathing picked up. She decided to talk to her upstairs neighbor, Mr. Goldberg, a retired man, always quiet and polite. But when Leah asked, "Have you heard anything from downstairs?" he suddenly got very serious. He looked at her, no smile on his face, and said only, "Don't think too much about that apartment." Now Leah wasn't just scared, she was curious. She called the landlord, and the answer she got was even more unsettling. "You shouldn't be hearing anything. That unit's sealed." Leah paused. "Sealed?" she repeated. "You mean no one's in there?" The landlord firmly replied, "No, and the door hasn't been opened in over a month." That night, Leah went down herself. The rain was coming down hard, the hallway lit by a dim yellow light that kept flickering. As she walked down the stairs, everything felt too quiet, like the building itself was hiding something. When she reached the door to that apartment, she saw the seal, a piece of paper taped across the door with the words, "Do not enter, sealed for inspection." But there were fingerprints on it. No, not just fingerprints. The paper was scratched from the inside. Not deep, but torn in several spots. Like someone had tried to claw their way out. Leah stood there for a long moment, and then she heard that crying again. This time it was closer, and filled with pain, not just loneliness, like it was saying something more. She pulled herself away and went back upstairs. But that night, when she closed her eyes in bed, the crying didn't stay downstairs. It felt like it was inside her now. The rain had become a constant part of Leah's life, like the same tune playing in her room every night. But it wasn't just the rain anymore. Now there were voices, soft weeping ones, coming from below. And now they were living in her mind. She kept telling herself it was stress, loneliness, or overwork. But every time she went to bed, the sounds came back. One night, she decided she'd had enough. If it was just in her head, she needed to prove it. She took out her phone, turned on the voice recorder, and placed it right on the table, directly above the apartment below. Then she sat in silence, turned off the lights, and listened. The next morning, Leah sat down right away to check the recording. At first, everything sounded normal. The sound of rain, occasional thunder, the faint noise of her chair moving, and then there it was, that same quiet sobbing. Leah's throat went dry. She adjusted her headphones and listened closely. The sobs grew louder, and then suddenly, in between, she heard a whisper, so soft it was barely more than a breath. "Help me. Please." A chill ran through her entire body. The voice didn't sound like anyone she knew, but it was so weak, so broken. It felt like it came from somewhere deep, a place where even air forgets how to move. From that day on, Leah's world shifted. One night, when she stepped into the hallway outside her apartment, she caught sight of a shadow. Very faint but clear, as if someone had quickly crossed the hallway and then disappeared right into the wall near the downstairs apartment door. Leah froze. She held her breath, but no door opened. No footsteps followed. Just that shadow slipping silently through the wall. A few days later, something else happened. Something that made Leah almost certain she wasn't alone anymore. One morning after the rain, when she walked over to her window, there were wet finger marks on the glass, like someone had touched it from the outside. And then, she saw a faint outline. A face, very blurry, very faint, but it was there. And when she turned around, no one. The window opened to the outer wall, 3rd floor. No one could have climbed up there. Now, something strange started happening every night. The lights would dim on their own, her laptop would shut down randomly, and even Alexa would suddenly activate. Sorry, I didn't catch that. Leah's fear was no longer around her, it was inside her. Sometimes when she looked in the mirror, she thought she saw someone standing behind her, blurry but real. And then, the whispering. It wasn't just coming from below anymore. Now it was in Leah's room, behind her, by her ear, inside her head. One night, she clearly heard it. Don't leave me alone down there. The voice wasn't asking for help anymore. It was giving orders. It wanted Leah to come downstairs. Leah thought of talking to Mr. Goldberg again, but when she went to his door the next morning, it was wide open. No one was inside. The furniture was untouched. Clothes were hanging in place, but the apartment was empty. Like someone had suddenly left, no goodbye, no plan to return. Then Leah remembered, this had happened before. The couple downstairs had left the same way. Without a word, without a trace. Leah was starting to feel that the sealed apartment below wasn't just an empty space anymore. It was a doorway to something else. Something was calling to her. Every night, every step. Now she even started seeing light coming from under the door. A faint bluish glow, like a candle burning inside. But the door was sealed, wasn't it? Still, Leah had stopped asking that question. She was already connected to it. Like some invisible thread was pulling her. In her dreams, in her sleep, and now, in her waking life too. That night, the rain was louder than usual. Lightning flashed and lit up the sky in blue. Leah was putting on her raincoat and heading toward the main entrance of her building when she suddenly stopped. Her eyes landed on the apartment below, the one that had been sealed shut for the past month. Its door was now slightly open. It was swaying gently with the breeze, and from inside, a strange, dry, scentless air drifted out. It was raining outside, but the air from inside that apartment felt dry and old, like no one had breathed there for a very long time. Leah froze in place, her chest felt heavy, but something was pulling her toward that half-open door. Her fingers moved on their own, reaching into her jacket pocket, and the flashlight on. Her phone turned on. She slowly walked down the stairs. Each step echoed like a hammer in the silence. The door creaked open a little more on its own, as if something inside was inviting her in. Leah shined her flashlight inside. The walls were old, covered in thick dust, but something in the corner caught her eye. That part of the apartment was slightly cleaned. Sitting there was an old photo frame. Leah walked over and picked it up. The photo was blurry. It was the couple who used to live there. But something else was there too. A third figure standing behind them. A shadowy shape with an unclear face. Leah's heart started pounding as she looked closer. Something about the shadow felt familiar, like it was her own. Suddenly, her flashlight hit a section of the wall, and she froze. There was writing on it, deep red, maybe paint. Or maybe something else. The words read, "We let him in. He won't leave. Now he wants her." Leah looked back at the photo, her breath catching in her throat. Was that third person me? She asked herself. She quickly ran out of the apartment. The door slowly creaked, shut behind her, like someone was closing it from the inside. Back in her apartment, she opened up her recordings and audio files. When she ran one old voice clip through her editing software and cleaned it up, she heard something she hadn't noticed before. A whisper, soft and low, buried deep in the background. "You were always here." Leah stopped breathing for a second. Was she losing her mind? Or was some long-hidden truth finally coming to light? She dropped everything and went down to the dusty basement storage to dig through the building's old files. In a thin folder, she found a document that made the floor feel like it vanished under her feet. There was a name written, Leah Moore, a girl who had lived in that same apartment exactly 10 years ago. Listed as mysteriously missing, no explanation, just her name. And the same address. Leah started questioning everything. About herself. Am I Leah Moore? Had she forgotten her past and created a new identity? Or had she become the very thing people had forgotten? Now she was even afraid of her own reflection. When she looked into the mirror, her eyes didn't feel like her own anymore. Sometimes in the window's glass, she saw an extra reflection, like someone else was standing beside her. And then, the final scene. The rain was still falling, steady, unbroken. Leah stood outside the building now, wearing that same old soaked white dress. Her face was calm, but her eyes told a story, something that couldn't be spoken, only seen. And up above, in the third-floor window, a new girl was standing. Maybe the new tenant of the apartment. She was staring down at Leah, there. Wasn't fear in her eyes, just confusion. And then, she slowly lifted her phone and started recording. This time, Leah didn't vanish. She was still there, and maybe now. Someone else was about to disappear, so that was our story for today. 3 very scary, true rainy night horror stories. If you're feeling a strange uneasiness lingering even after the rain has stopped, if certain moments from these stories are still stuck in the corners of your mind, then maybe nothing got left behind. Maybe something came along with you. Here at Chilling Talks, we bring you stories just like this, ones that feel real, echo in your thoughts, and stay with you long after the video ends. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon, because you never know when the next story might come knocking. Chilling Talks, where fear isn't just seen, it's felt. We'll meet again on another dark and chilling night. Stay safe, stay haunted,